everybody. Today we're going to stitch out a couple of designs from Kimberbell's Well Wishes design collection, and we're going to have a look at the brand new Cinch Sack blanks. We have two colors. The Kimberbell Well Wishes design collection is available now. There'll be a link below. You can download the files and the instructions and stitch out these designs. There's 6 designs in the collection. Let's have a look at these. These are great designs that cover a bunch of different occasions. The first one in the collection simply says congrats. This can be done in a 5x7 hoop. You can change the colors if you like. They do give you all the thread colors that you need. These are glide thread colors. You also need some fusible backing and a sticky back tearaway stabilizer. The next design in the collection is Big Hugs. There's Happy Birthday. There's the design called Friends. It says friends are the family we pick ourselves. Shine bright, and you did it. What's great about these designs is not only do they look good on the little cinch sacks, you can use them in lots of different ways. You could stitch it out on a piece of fabric and put it in a round embroidery hoop or a frame. You can make a little pillow out of it. You can make an oversized mug rug, placemats, even a little quilt. You could stitch out all the sentiments and make a wall hanging if you like. Really nice multi-use designs. Today we're going to stitch out 2 of these designs, and you're going to want to stay to the end of the video to hear about the bag share opportunity. I'm going to be stitching out the Shine Bright and the Happy Birthday. I have both colors of bags to share with you. Let's look at the bags. The bags come in 2 packs. This is the gray blank, and this one they're calling Storm Blue, kind of like a dark teal. On the back of the packaging, it gives you instructions how to prep your bag. Wash in cold water, lay flat to dry, press with a warm iron. I've already prepped my bags, and these are 2 packs. Notice how there's still a bag left here and a bag left here. Make sure to stay tuned for the bag share at the end. Here's both my blanks. I wanted to keep an eye on these when they got wet to see if they shrank. So I took my little spray bottle and I sprayed with water and I saturated it. They do shrink just a little bit, so you definitely either want to spray them or pre-wash them. After I sprayed them with water, I sprayed them with my Faultless Heavy Finish starch. I let them dry a little bit. They were still a little bit damp, and then I went over them with my iron. Now they're nice and flat and very crisp. They're ready for the embroidery project. The first one we're going to stitch out is the Shine Bright design. That's this design right here. There's also a good picture here showing the embroidery and where the different colors of threads are in the design. I did make a couple of changes. We'll go through the threads. You can see we have white, buttercup, pink, peacock, and magic mint. These are given as glide colors. I do have glide white. For the buttercup, I pulled this yellow. This is Floriani. I have a lot of Floriani threads. For mint, instead of a pale mint, I went with this blue-green color. This is a sim thread color. I have a large collection of these threads as well. I purchased these when I first started doing embroidery. They've been great threads. For pink, instead of a pale pink, I picked a really intense bright pink. I like bright colors. This is also a sim thread. And for peacock, which is a paler color, I actually have a good match for it on the next project. But for this project, I picked this really nice, deep, bright purple. You need 1 piece of fabric for this. You need a 2.5-inch square for the sun. Random piece of yellow fabric. I did put fusible on the back. I have my snips, my double curve applique scissors, and I'm using a regular 7511 embroidery needle. For the Happy Birthday project, I pulled out my glide color card. This is what the color card looks like. I'll link below where I purchased mine. It has the different glide threads in here by color name and color number, and samples of the actual thread. I went down this list and I had my color card and I matched the threads. Some of them are a really, really close match. The only change I made was instead of the color Reef, which is right here, it's what they use to stitch out Happy Birthday, I'm going to stitch that out in the pink because I like the pink. Let's go through my colors. This color for Azalea. These are all Floriani for this one. The color Funshine is a nice yellow. Magic Mint, Pale Blue, Amethyst, and Peacock. couple other things we're going to need are some paper tape and a water-soluble marker. I have a water-soluble marker from the Kimberbell punch needle kits. There's also a water-soluble marker in your Clear Blue Tiles Essential set. We're going to stitch out Shine Bright first. This is a great beginner embroidery project. It just has one piece of fabric, so you'll learn how to do applique. Everything else is all stitched out. This is a 5x7 hoop project, and we need to hoop some sticky back tearaway stabilizer. This is the kind of sticky back tearaway that I have. I've actually had this for quite some time in my sewing room here, and I haven't used it yet. You want to make sure your hoop is loose because it's going to be thicker than a regular stabilizer. So put that paper side up, give it a good push to get that hoop down inside. Once you've got that in, you're going to want to tighten it. You definitely want to screwdriver tighten your stabilizer. Once that's secure, you're going to want to scratch the paper. You can use scissors, a seam ripper, something you don't mind getting sticky. I have several of these scissors in my sewing room, and this pair in particular I keep in a certain spot, and I use it for things that are sticky, or if I need to cut paper or rope or something, I make sure to keep it separate. Next, we want to gently peel away the paper and try not to poke the stabilizer underneath. I usually do poke the stabilizer underneath in the corner when I do this part. I did right there, but it's okay. Want to peel off all the paper. If you put a hole in it, I've got a tiny hole in that. Put a piece of paper tape over it just in case. The sticky side is exposed. We're going to take this over to our machine. I'm on a Baby Lock Meridian. My files are on USB. I use a folding metal book stand to hold my instructions. Let's bring up our file. Here's my folder for the Well Wishes designs. We're going to want to start with the Centering Crosshairs. We're going to do this for both of our bags. Whenever you're stitching out the bags, this will be your first step. Go ahead and bring that up. Hit Set and Embroidery. You want to have a thread that you will be able to see on your stabilizer. I went ahead and put the Buttercup, the yellow color, on my machine. That's the first thread we're going to use in the Shine Bright design. We're going to stitch out the crosshairs directly on the sticky stabilizer. Take this off your machine. We're going to head over to the table. We need to get our bag ready to put into the hoop. You want to lay it down wrong side facing up with the drawstring part at the top. You can tell it's the wrong side because you can see the serged edge right here. You want to grab your water-soluble pen and a ruler. We want to make a line a 1/4 inch away from the right edge. My ruler has a nice 1/4 inch line, so I can line that up with the edge. It does tell us to make sure the line is 90° perpendicular from the top. When I line this up to the top and I line up 1/4 inch here, as I go down, it's not even. I'm going to measure my 1/4 inch based off the top right here. So we'll match that to the top. Make sure it's a 1/4 inch. As I go down, it almost becomes a 1/2 inch. I'm not going to worry about that right now. We're going to use our water-soluble pen and draw the line. Once you have your mark, we're going to flip it right side up with the casing at the top. So the casing is right here. This is what they call the casing. That's where the string is. We want to fold it in half to the left, right sides together. The drawstring is going to be on your left. I'm going to fold it there. I can see this is a little crooked, but I have it nice and straight on the top. It says to finger press the center fold and mark it by placing a pin at the top and the bottom. Be sure the top edges are evenly aligned. So make sure your top here is nice and even. Take an extra few seconds, get that nice and even. I'm going to finger press that, and I can see the bottom's even. The only thing that's crooked is the side. Finger press that, and then we're going to put a pin at the top and the bottom. I've got my fold. I'm going to put my fold on a line on my cutting mat to try and help me make sure I get that straight. I'm going to add a pin here, top, and pin here at the bottom, and then I'll double check it with a ruler, a little bit off. I'm going to turn this towards me and repin the one here on the bottom. That's better. I've got my pins lined up. It says to unfold. I already unfolded right side up. Fold the left edge, here's my left edge, over and align the marked line, see my marked line, with the pins. The left edge will overlap the center fold by a 1/4 inch, which makes sense because we measured a 1/4 inch. Be sure the top edges are evenly aligned. So again, we're going to look at this top edge up here, and I'm looking to get my line here lined up with my pin. Make sure that's nice and lined up. Finger press along the fold. We're going to call this fold A. I'm going to match the line to the pin down at the bottom. Finger press, they're calling that fold A. We want to keep fold A nice and folded. We're going to fold the bottom of the cinch sack upward to align along the bottom of the drawstring casing. The drawstring casing is this straight stitch line here and here. And again, the drawstring casing kind of goes down a little bit, but if I follow it here and I go straight, it goes straight here. So I'm going to be looking at this part and this part here. This little edge is a little bit crooked. Grab the bottom. We're going to fold this up to line up with the casing, like that. Got the edge lined up with that straight stitch line right here on the casing, and it tells us to finger press that, and that is fold B. It says to go ahead and remove our pins. I'm going to slide this over here. We need to get our hoop. Here's the crosshairs. Here's my bag. Here's the top. Fold A, fold B. It says to align fold A with the vertical crosshair and fold B with the horizontal crosshair. Got your bag like this. Vertical crosshair, horizontal crosshair. You're taking this corner of the bag and we're going to line it up like this. So your crosshair is at the top right corner space on your crosshair, lining up the bottom and lining up the side like that. Go ahead and give it a press, it'll help it stick. Now we're going to unfold the sack and smooth it to adhere it to the stabilizer. We're going to have extra hanging off to the right. Let's flip it down. As I flip it down, I'm going to keep this fold lined up with the crosshair. There we go. And now we're going to open this part like that. Flatten that out. You can see your fold will be going right over the crosshair. Really easy to check your alignment. Give it a press. I like to smooth out on sticky back stabilizers. That way if there are any wrinkles, they'll go out to the outer part of the frame. We'll be stitching in the center. You can see this is the part that slides into your machine. The top is up here. Here's your string. All the excess is off to the side. It tells us to roll up the excess and pin, clip, or tape it into place. Be sure the drawstring are out of the way of the stitching. You've got a drawstring here. If you want, you can tape it out of the way just in case to make sure it's not going to move like that. And then we want to get this out of the way because as it's stitching, you don't want this to get caught underneath. It'll ruin your project. I'm going to clip it at the top and then I'm going to clip it at the bottom. Once you've got this set, we're ready to head over to the machine. We're going to stitch out the Shine Bright design together. Great beginner design. If you don't have the cinch sacks, you can stitch this on a piece of fabric and frame it, make a little pillow. It's a nice little design. You could stitch it on a little bandana for your dog, the back of a jacket. It's really cute. Just have to load it, hit set and embroidery. We're ready to go. We're going to start with the yellow thread. You can see how I have this loaded. Here's the left side, here's the right side that's clipped. Let's go ahead and stitch out the placement line for the sun fabric. Grab your sun fabric. Going to make sure we cover the placement line. I do have a piece of tape at the top. We're going to stitch the tack down. You want to trim away the fabric that's outside of that tack down line. I've got this trimmed. The next step is kind of a long stitch out. It's going to stitch the outline and then the sun rays and the stars on the outside. Let's go ahead and stitch that out. Once the sun is stitched, you would use magic mint or whatever color you picked. I picked this green blue color. I'm going to put that on my machine and we're going to stitch out the S and the H in Shine. That looks great. I'm really pleased with the way this is stitching out so far. Great detail on the sun, nice even satin stitching here. We're going to switch next to pink, and I picked a really bright pink. We're going to stitch out the I and the N in shine and the I and the G in bright. These stitch outs look great too. Really pleased with this. We're switching to the color Peacock. We're going to stitch out the E on shine and the B and the R on bright. Next we switch back to mint. I'm using this bright color, and we're going to stitch out the H and the T. Next we're going to switch to white and stitch out the accent details. This is all done. Wow, that white really pops on my bright colored thread. This looks fantastic. I love the stitch out. If there's any jump threads, I already cut one there. Go ahead and trim that. Look for any loose threads. Let's take this over to the table. Here's a close-up of the design. It looks great. I love it. I love my bright colors. They really stand out against the blue color of the Cinch Sack. I'm going to want to take this out of the hoop. I've already unscrewed this. We'll get this nice and loose. Pop that out. I have that piece of tape on the back where I had the hole. And this is a sticky back tearaway. So we should be able to tear it away. We've got another piece of tape here that's holding the drawstring. If you have any tape, go ahead and remove the tape. And then you've got your clips that were holding the excess part of your sack. Set those aside. This is called a tearaway. It should tear. Let's see if it does. I'm going to hold my stitches. Yep, this does tear. I like to hold the stitches down to make sure I don't ruin my stitches. You shouldn't ruin your stitches though. You're probably going to end up with some left, like this. See in the holes? So as you tear it off, just be careful. And then you might need to go back and trim. Like as I'm tearing right now, obviously this is probably not going to tear off. Everything else should tear, and then I'll have to go back and trim everything out. It's up to you if you want to sit here and pick out everything. I don't think there's anything wrong with leaving just a little bit of the stabilizer behind. Even when you buy products in the stores like sweatshirts that are embroidered, you'll see there's stabilizer on the inside. The only thing I would say is if you used a sticky back wash away, wash it off, because otherwise if you gift this to somebody and they happen to get it wet and there's wash away stabilizer on the inside, it's going to get sticky and they're not going to know what it is. Before we sew this together and make our bag, we're going to stitch out the happy birthday design. That way you can see what it's like to stitch out a couple of designs, and then we'll sew them both together. I'm going to do all of the beginning steps off camera because we just did this. So I'll do the hooping, the peeling, I'll stitch the crosshairs, I'll mark and fold my cinch sack and get it loaded, and we'll start together at the machine stitching out the happy birthday design. Let's stitch out the happy birthday. Let's bring up that file. Just one file. I've already done the crosshairs and I've got my bag ready to go. The first color that we're starting with is amethyst. This is the color I have for amethyst. I'm going to put this on my machine. The instructions tell you to iron fusible backing to the wrong side of the cupcake liner fabric. I actually put fusible on the back of the cupcake liner and the frosting. I don't think it's going to matter, but I've got fusible on both of them. This bag was straight on both sides. When I had to measure and draw the line, this bag wasn't crooked. It was really straight, so it went a little bit faster. Let's go ahead and start. We're going to stitch out the right candle fill. Next we switch to peacock and we stitch out the right candle details. We're going to work on the left candle. The first step is stitched out in the pale blue, the left candle dark stripes, and then switch to magic mint and stitch out the left candle light stripes. I'll go ahead and run both of those steps together. After the candles are done, we're going to start on our applique. We're going to leave the magic mint color on the machine and stitch out the placement line for the cupcake liner. The fabric they have in the instructions is directional and they have stripes running up and down, but mine's solid. I just need to make sure that I've got the right side of my fabric up. It's got the fusible on the back, and I completely cover the placement line. I need to trim away everything outside of the tack down line, and then we'll stitch out the satin outline and the details. Next we're going to switch to yellow. They're calling this Funshine. We're going to stitch the placement line for the cupcake fabric, which is actually felt, and I completely missed it while I was prepping my fabric. I found a piece of yellow scrap felt. I'm not sure it's going to be big enough. Let's stitch the placement line and find out. Here's my scrap felt. The biggest part is at the bottom. Oh, easily saved by scrap felt. Honestly, if you don't have felt, you can use fabric. And I thought about using a brown felt to make it chocolate, but since I already pulled the yellow color for this, the yellow thread, I'm going to go with the yellow. This is a really thick piece of felt. This comes from a Moda felt scrap bag. There are these bags you can buy, and they just have a bunch of scraps of felt. We're going to stitch the tack down, and then you'll trim the felt. There's no decorative stitching outside of the felt. That's one thing to think about if you're using fabric. There's no decorative stitch. Felt will probably look a little fancier, and if you have embroidery software, you could add a decorative stitch. Let's go ahead and tack down and trim our felt. That came out pretty good. I took my time with that, and I used these double curve applique scissors, and I was pretty much snipping almost thread by thread as I went around to make sure I made that look nice and pretty. The next step, we're going to switch to the color Azalea, and we're going to stitch out the frosting placement line. We'll place our frosting fabric right side up. We'll tack it down, trim it, and then stitch the decorative outline and the swirls detail. I'll go ahead and run all that together. It's the same process as doing the cupcake liner. Now we're just doing the fabric up here at the cupcake top. This is looking really cute. I'm getting really hungry for a cupcake. We're going to switch to Funshine, our yellow. Stitch out the flames, so the little candle flames. There's some stars that'll stitch out, and then the next step, we'll start stitching out the sprinkles with this color. I'll go ahead and run those two steps together. We're done with the yellow. We're going to stitch out the rest of the sprinkles. First we'll stitch out with the magic mint color, then with the peacock color, and then the light blue color. I'll go ahead and run all of those together. We're all done with this design. I'm going to take this over to my table, get it out of the hoop, remove the stabilizer. Same as before, I'll do that off camera. Then we'll work together and we'll get our bags assembled. Here's what the happy birthday one looks like stitched out. I did remove most of the stabilizer. You can see what I've got left. Be really careful tearing away from this part here. This is almost a single line of stitching. I think it's a double line when it's stitched out. But if you just pull, you're going to pull these stitches, so take some time with that. I'm going to leave that on the back. I think it's fine. It's the inside of a bag. One thing I'm going to do before we work on sewing these together, for both my bags, I'm going to press and get rid of the fold lines. For the felts on the cupcake, this is what I was talking about, Moda scrap bag. They do these for fabric and for felt. I've had this one for quite a while, so I've been using it. When it was full, there was more in here, but you get a big pile of felt. I've used a lot of the bright colors up already for other projects. It's a pretty good buy. You get a good selection of colors. Quilt shops might have it, and you can also find this online. I'm going to go ahead and sew this one. I do have a matching thread, but I'm going to keep my thread in the beige color so you'll be able to see my stitching. You want to lay your sack right side up with the casing at the top. It tells us to fold the sack in half to the left, right sides together, tuck in the drawstrings into the cinch sack. I'm actually going to tape these in to keep them out of the way. You don't accidentally want to stitch over these. That would be bad. So make sure you fold them in. Just grab a piece of your paper tape and tape them out of the way. That way you know you're not going to get them caught when you're stitching. So those are nice and out of the way. We're going to fold this in half. You're going to match up your ends. Now remember, this bag is cut a little bit crooked. It's not a big deal. what we're going to do is match the top. Let me grab some clips, and you don't stitch the top, of course, because that's your opening, but I want to clip this top corner right here, and then I want to clip over here. I'm just making sure that my top is even. That's going to help me as I go the rest of the way around. Now I'm going to clip the bottom since the side is crooked, so my top is straight. Smooth it out. I'm going to clip the bottom. Now I will tell you, the other bag is cut straight. I'll go ahead and show that in a minute. But let's clip the bottom. I know this is straight, this is straight. When I sew this, I can tell this part of the bag is straight. This part here is crooked. If you want, you could trim it. I'm not going to bother because it's nice and it's serged. So when I sew this part, I'll probably just use the regular presser foot without the guide, because I'll be sewing a 1/4 inch from this line here. I don't want to match up to that line, the outside part, because this kind of goes like that. I want to stitch straight, and I'll show you my stitching after I do that. So I'm going to clip these. I've got it all clipped. I still haven't removed that marker line. We can remove that with water in a bit. Let's look at the other bag. I'm going to tape my strings in so I don't accidentally sew over those. You can even tell by looking at it that it's straight. So you'll fold it in half, right sides together. See? I think I just happened to get one that for some reason, maybe it got pulled a little bit when it was going through the serging process, but it's not a big deal. I'm going to clip this one all the way around, and then I'll sew this one together. And I still have the blue line on this one as well that I need to get rid of. I'm at my sewing machine. I have a Juki TL 2020 PE. It's the same as the 2010 white machine. PE just stands for Platinum Edition. That's why it's silver looking. Let's sew this one together and I can show you how I'm going to deal with the crooked seam. I'm going to start at the bottom. Here's the fold and here's the bottom. I'm using my 1/4 inch foot, but the one without a guide. I do have a 1/4 inch foot with a guide, but I don't want to use that because I have that weird seam. This is the 1/4 inch foot with the guide. This is the guide right here, so you can bump your fabric against it. This is a 1/4 inch. You just have to watch it and keep an eye on it. There's also a 1/4 inch mark on the needle plate of the machine right here. So I'm going to line this up, and it tells us to go forward and backwards when we start. So let's go forward and back. And I'm just going to stitch straight until I get to the corner. I'm going to keep the needle down, pick up my presser foot. I have a knee lift on this machine, that's why you don't see my hand going to the back of the machine. I'm going to move this clip out of the way and put my presser foot down. I can get a little bit closer. I'm going to go back, take another couple of stitches. 1, 2. I think that's going to be good. That might be a little bit too far. Okay, I am getting a little picky, but that's okay. I'm going to hand crank up, and all I'm going to do is slide it. I want this part of the presser foot lined up with this part of the bag, not the crooked part, this part of the bag. Get that lined up. And then as I needle down, I'm getting it to that line of stitching from before. There we go. So I'm going to follow this line of the bag, not this piece of fabric. Let's go ahead and stitch to the top, and you'll see as we go further up, this is going to come in and eventually match up. See how the sides are almost matching right here, and as I get closer to the top, they do match. There we go. They're matching right as I get near the top. I'm going to slow down and be careful because you've got your cord right here. Double check, make sure it's out of the way. You've got a bump here. Just take your time. And it looks like I got a little bit off center, so I'm going to take a minute here, pick that up. I'm going to reline this up, make sure that's matched. And I'm going to catch it right here by the casing. So if there's a fold or anything, it'll be in with the casing and it won't be as noticeable. Just using the scissor to make sure that that's nice and flat. Don't run over your scissors if you do this. And I don't think I stitched it perfectly straight, which is not unusual since I'm not using the guide, but we'll see how it turns out. Those are nice and matched. I'm going to go off and I'm going to back it up. All done. My thread cutter is kind of on the fritz, so I need to manually cut my thread, and I'll stitch the other one off camera and then we'll have a look at them. These are both sewn together. For this one I was able to use the guide foot. My sewing is really nice and straight along here and nice and even at the top. One thing I did as I was sewing this, let's pretend this is going through the sewing machine. When I got to the point where I was coming up on the rope, I kind of guided the fabric through to make sure the top didn't slip over. I wanted to make sure the top of the bag is all nice and lined up. You can also use pins. I had clips, so that helped. Here's the bag that had the crooked piece. See how as you go down, it kind of sticks out. Again, if I want, I could trim the extra off, but since the edges are serged, I'm going to leave it. Looks like I had a little bump with my stitching there, but that's okay. I was tucking that fabric. The top is nice and even. That looks good. That looks good. Pretty straight for not using the guide foot. And one thing I need to do is get this marker off. I've got this little folding collapsible rubber dish that I can use. Sponge brush. You could leave the marker on, it's on the inside. I'm going to go ahead and get it off. That's all you have to do. So then of course your bag is wet, but you can take a dry iron to it and iron over it to dry it, which is what I'm going to do. If you're wetting it and then ironing it, make sure your iron's clean. Luckily this is the inside of the bag. My iron had something on it, left a little goopy mark there. The instructions do say, if you like, you can clip your corners to reduce bulk. I'm going to leave them. These are nice and they're serged, and it's a cinch sack. I'm not hung up on these corners being perfect. Let's flip these right side out. Remember, we have our string taped, so we need to go ahead and pull off the tape. I think before I do the big reveal, I'm going to give them a quick press on the iron. They got kind of wrinkled as I flipped them right side out. I was using a Clover point turner to help with the corners. These are all pressed. Let's have a look. The first one we did was the Shine Bright design. That came out great. Look how pretty that is. And these are great designs, multi-use. You don't have to stitch them on a cinch sack. You can stitch them on anything you like. Next we stitched out the Happy Birthday cupcake. I really need to go get a cupcake now. Look at that. Is there anybody watching this who doesn't want to eat a cupcake? Beautiful. Love it. They came out great. Let me get my ruler so you know how big these are. From the bottom of the casing to the bottom of the bag is about 9.5 inches, and then going across is just under 8 inches. You can fit quite a bit into these bags. Here's a random Fat Eighth bundle off my shelf. I think that would make a great birthday gift, just to give you an idea of what can fit inside a bag. So put that in the Happy Birthday. And then you pull the strings, you can cinch it closed, and then you can sort of fuss with it to make the ruffle look nice across the top. That looks great. You see how there's space at the bottom too? So I put in something that's square. So if this was sitting on a table with stuff in it, you're still going to see the Happy Birthday. The Shine Bright is like that as well. There's space here at the bottom, so when you fill these with things and you set it on something, you're not going to like have it sit like this and be missing part of the design. You can still see the bottom of the design. I really like that. I'm going to pretend it's my birthday. Wow, awesome, thank you. I love fabric. I hope you've enjoyed making these well wishes designs with me, and if you've stayed to the end, we're going to talk about the bag share. This project and the blanks were provided to me from Kimberbell. Thank you so much. If you'd like to purchase the blanks or purchase the designs, please consider using the link below. I get a small commission through the affiliate program, but more important, it lets Kimberbell know that people are watching my videos. These blanks come in packs of 2. I only use 2. I'm going to share these bags with you. I'm going to have 2 people that I can share this with. If you're interested in participating in your chance for a bag share, I'm going to ask you to please like the video. That's the thumbs up. If you're watching on TV, I think you'll have to pull it up on your phone and go ahead and press that thumbs up button. Be a subscriber, please. And I want you to leave a comment telling me which one of the designs you'd like to stitch out on your bag. We've got You Did It, Big Hugs, Congrats, Shine Bright, Happy Birthday, and the Friends design. Which one is your favorite? Or if you like them all and you're not sure, you can comment that too. But please be sure to leave a comment with either the design name or say I like all the designs, so I know that you're participating in the bag share. I'll select the bag share recipients on Valentine's Day. So you have until Valentine's Day 2026 to participate in the bag share. I'm trying not to say all those keywords that set things off and bring the spammers. When the bag share recipients are selected, I will go ahead and leave a comment on your comment, and then you'll need to send me an email at azfamilyzoo@gmail.com, but don't do that until I let you know, unless you have a question, then you can email me. You have to be over 18, and then in order to receive your bag share, I'll need a physical address to send you the bag share. If you have any questions, send me an email to the azfamilyzoo@gmail.com. But again, to participate, please like the video, be a subscriber, comment on what you think is your favorite design or the design you'd like to stitch out first. And as far as colors, it's going to be a random draw. It'd be too hard to keep track of comments and colors and this and that, so you'll get one of these too. Thank you for stitching these out with me. A couple of other items I'm working on right now. Coming up soon will be the next applique of the month. I did the first applique of the month. That will be linked below. And sooner than that, the next Perfectly Pieced is going to come out. I'm running a year-long Perfectly Pieced mystery quilt project. I'll put a link in the description box below where you can watch the first video with all the information about downloading the packet and talking about what size quilts we're making. There's a couple of different options, fabric requirements, and all that good stuff. Thank you again for joining me. Again, to participate in the bag share, like, subscribe, comment, and I will see you next time.